This is skunkmagazine.com, and Skunk was started 14 years ago. It was started in Montreal, but it's all over North America. We have reached, just to give you an idea of who we're speaking to, we have 5,000 doors across the US in Barnes & Nobles and magazine retailers and head shops. And we have about 1,000 doors in Canada in various places, head shops, grocery stores, chain stores, and anybody who is in a relationship with us. And then we also have the global online magazine. And one of the things for SKUNK Magazine is it has been devoted to organics and sustainability for its 14 years, which no other cannabis magazine can say. And one of the reasons why I'm very honored to be here is because of the devotion that everyone here in Nimbin, and also I noticed in Byron, has to practicing sustainable business practices, sustainable practices in every way, encouraging earth consciousness. So with SKUNK Magazine, we can really say that that has been our devotion too. And we have really focused on covering what is meaningful, what is real, what is good knowledge, what can really benefit people, what people really want to know, and covering activists as well. We were one of the first to do a whole issue devoted to a child, brave Michaela, who is 7 years old, and fought cancer and won. She was one of the youngest patients at the time to be dosed with full spectrum oil. And she's now leukemia-free and a preteen and very happy. So those are Skunk's commitments. And I just wanted to share that with you just to understand, why we're here and why there's a kinship. About 5 years ago, SKUNK Magazine offices were raided. And at the time, John Vergados, my partner, he was working with all of the major European cultivars, the seed cultivars, and was bringing in genetic diversity into Canada. At the time of the raids, they struck a mortal wound to the magazine. And the magazine at the time was thriving. Magazines in general don't make a lot of money. That's not why we're doing it. But it was good. Things were good. And we were helping a lot of people. We were helping people in need. We were helping get the message out to people who were suffering, and maybe helping bring more visibility to important stories that can change lives. And so at the time of the raids, it really was a mortal wound, as I said. And my partner, John, right now is still entrenched in the Canadian courts. It's gone on for 5 years. And it has been one of the most challenging tests of character I personally have ever gone through. And I know for my partner, John, it has also been the case. And so, what we did about 2 years ago is we launched a new magazine called The Highway, which was a free magazine. And the intention with The Highway was to really go even further and show who we are as a people of the Renaissance, a people who really want the system to change and see that we can have it change and that things can actually be more beautiful and more connected. And we want to be more connected and we want to feel healthier. And so there's a movement happening, and it's not just here and it's not just there, it's global. And so what we did is we said, well, you attacked Skunk, so we're gonna beat you, you assholes, excuse my language, at your own game. And we launched this vehicle to basically protect Skunk and also to tell further the story of who we are as a green Renaissance company. And I say that, and I wanted to define that a little bit, because one of the popular things right now in the cannabis industry, and I've been in the cannabis industry for 10 years, is this term called the green rush, which I find particularly disgusting and nauseating, because for me, when I think about the green rush, talk about the gold rush or any kind of rush to get money, you're talking about money that is blood money. This is money that is millions upon millions of lives globally have been affected by prohibition. And like Adela was saying earlier, cannabis prohibition is genocide. Cannabis prohibition is murder, period. It is. And one of the things is that if they beat you enough, if they lie to you enough, if they, come in and they attack your resources, if they attack your family, you start questioning your own sanity. And so for us with the highway, and it was a couple of things that we were attempting to do. We were protecting SKUNK Magazine as a brand so it can continue into the future. We were telling what we prefer from the green rush. We prefer a green renaissance. We prefer not doing business as usual, but doing business in a new way. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you all, today is that a lot of this you guys are doing. You guys are practicing a green renaissance in so many ways, but you're really limited in terms of cannabis. And so in terms of business, when we think about how we have to evolve in the cannabis industry, and when we look at the next 10 years or the next 20 years, we're going to have to continue to remain agile, and we're going to have to keep ourselves in prime form. And we're going to have to understand how can we work together as a global community to continue to create a system that is more vibrant and healthier for our communities and for our planet. And so the wonderful thing is that we can right now look at ourselves and we can start to figure out ways that we can do this now, knowing that we're in it for a long, long fight. One of the ways that I believe in doing that, and what we tried to do at the Highway Magazine and at SKUNK Magazine now, is to show ways that people, companies, communities, healing centers are combining ancient wisdom with modern technology. So one of the wonderful things that you guys are doing here in town is you can see that you're getting back and remembering your place as stewards of the planet. You're swapping out plastic straws for paper straws or metal straws. You're doing takeaway with your own containers. These are simple actions, but these actions have a lasting impact. And all of the children here in the community, they're seeing these practices. And it's really intriguing to me, and I really commend everybody in this community, truly. Because for me, you guys are already doing the Renaissance. You're already winning. And what I wanted to encourage today, I've been a woman of business for 20 years, and I do want to touch on some business items. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, what does it do to us when we are lied to, when we are stressed, when we are broken, when we have depression or PTSD, when we are having to, I drove in this morning and I saw 6 cars pulled over. They were being swabbed. And it's atrocious. I'm from California, born and raised, and I've been in Canada for 4 years. And California, the world thinks California's legal, everything's great, but nothing could be further from the truth. Right now in California, even though there are some prospering, and there's definitely this kind of glow and this sensationalism that's going on, what's really happening is craft culture has a death choke on it. They're going after the small and mid-sized farmer. Companies are dying left and right. I went through one of the hardest years in this 5 years last year because when we thought that legalization was coming forward and we thought we would have legal ways with which to move in the industry, what became really abundantly clear was that nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, they were going to systematically attempt to usurp the industry at every level from the people. all of the people that have fought for decades to have a legal way and were otherwise law-abiding citizens, they've come in and made it difficult. Now, California and Canada, let me give you an example, are two different systems ending with the same result. And I'm telling this to you because I can see the writing on the wall when I'm here, and I've had the privilege of traveling to different cannabis-relevant countries, and I see what happens every single time the potential for money-making comes into play. And at that moment, business as usual comes into play as well. And this is what I say to that. If you're practicing business as usual in 2018, then you are part of the problem. If you are investing in companies and corporations that are profiting off of other people's misery, then you are part of the problem. And it's up to each of us to find ways that we can not beat our heads against a brick wall. We don't want to do that. We want to do like what Buckminster Fuller said. He said, keep nourishing another system until the existing system is obsolete. And that's where I feel like with you guys are doing that. So I want to just encourage you that even though you don't have cannabis free, you don't have an environment that you can do commerce, you guys are already doing all the other parts that are so important. I mean, I came into the industry 10 years ago, but I'm an herbalist, I'm a mother, I'm a yogini. I ran a yoga studio for many years. I sold an organic yoga clothing line all over the world. And I taught yoga to kids. And I got into the cannabis industry 10 years ago. And it was by a fluke. And it was really following my heart because I was always a cannabis advocate. And I had used cannabis starting at 16 years old. And I had been blessed to live in Spain. I got to taste the most delicious Moroccan hash back in '98 and went to Amsterdam at the height and fell in love with, everything that had to do with the culture. And then I got into the vaporizer industry, and I got to travel country to country and talk with people in each country and each state about what they were facing. And what I saw everywhere was that human beings were attempting to figure out how they could get healthy, how they could live more vibrant, more fulfilled lives. And they were faced with a barrage of asinine laws. Take your pick. Every country has their own set. And it's all keeping the people away from their own healing. And so, in terms of what I did when I started to work with the magazine is, you could spend a lot of time looking at the closed door, and it can be really disheartening. And I think here, I've heard some stories right now, one child who was epileptic, who started to thrive on cannabis oil, and then was forced to get off cannabis oil, the doctor arrested, and then put back on the pharmaceuticals, and then forced, literally, to go into disease and into lack of health. Now, this is so disgusting and so disturbing, and you think, gosh, what can I do with this? How can I work with this? How can I not lose heart and still make progress? And one of the things that with the business that I focused on when we were dealing with our own mortal wound was, how does the plant work? How does cannabis itself work? How does nature work in order to affect change over time? And I started to kind of calm myself down a bit and become more of an observer and say, how can I become more of a master dancer with all of these intensities and learn to ride the waves? Because the waves of hypocrisy, the waves of war, all-out war that we have to engage in can be exhausting. And so, what I looked at was the fact that really as a planet, we kind of mirror the stars as people. We are our own universe, and we usually have within our own sphere thousands of people that we've interacted with in our lifetime. At least 100 in our immediate interaction. And usually we have about 15, 20, 25 people that are really kind of involved with the work that we're doing too. And so one of the ways that I stayed strong and stayed empowered and stayed focused so that I could save the magazine and prevent it from ruin was to look at who was in my sphere where I could tap in and connect with people that were their own superclusters. And I started to connect supercluster after supercluster. And I started to go to the places where there were thought leaders, where there were change makers, where there was evidence of a renaissance. And I started to talk with them and tell them about, hey, you're doing it too. We're in it together. Part of the reason that I'm here right now is to open up the lines of communication with Australia, knowing full well that Nimbin Hemp Embassy is reporting weekly on important stories that could change lives. My grandmother herself is 90 years old. And through my work, when I first started 10 years ago, I had to come out to her. She was really upset about cannabis. She didn't know anything about it. She would cross-examine me when I was 17 years old and sniff me out, looking for red eyes and ask me, why did I smell funny? And now she sits reading SKUNK Magazine, and she has chronic arthritis. She's in pain. She's also a cancer survivor. And her girlfriend, who's 91, giggle together and laugh about how their ailments are all disappearing. And they say, well, what are you taking? They didn't know that each of them was taking cannabis. They say, well, what are you taking? What's working? She's like, I'm taking a cannabis tincture. She's like, well, I have my cream. And, this is my grandmother who's 90. And she's completely transformed her whole worldview. She's a strict Catholic woman. So the point that I'm saying is that I feel like if we can allow ourselves to leave the victim behind and also stop thinking about the perpetrator, that we can step into a more empowered role and look into our own community and our own families and our own friends and look around and say, where are the open doors? Where are the opportunities? Where can I listen and from a place of listening, create something that's meaningful, create something that actually makes an impact and improves somebody's life. In business, I apply that to say, how can I be in service to my partner? What are the 4 or 5 things that my partner needs to achieve? And what are the 4 or 5 things that I wish to achieve? From that place, I create sacredness in relationship. And then I'm practicing new style business where I'm bringing the sacred back in what I'm doing. And I truly do believe that we are in a renaissance, we are in a dark age, and it's up to each one of us to be the walking healed. You know the big popular show, The Walking Dead? Well, I think that The Walking Dead is really kind of an expression of what this modern society, this industrial society has done to us. They've pumped us with their pharmaceuticals. They've waged economic warfare on the middle class. They've waged the drug war while they push their drugs down our throat. They've made plants illegal. I'm an herbalist, so I've studied herbology for a long time. I've watched them go after other herbs like St. John's wort or gotu kola. If it's working, you better believe they want to make it illegal. Same with mushrooms. Mushrooms, there's all kinds of reports. I myself have, had incredible experiences, watched people have incredible experiences of healing. The fact of the matter is that plants are our allies. Plants are our sacred allies. And what they're doing right now is not only wrong in terms of killing innocent people or making it difficult for people to heal themselves, I've known people who have died, children who have died because their medicine was taken away because they're not in a state that's legal and their parents were put in CPS. Many stories like that, which is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting because it leaves people no recourse. And so that's how you feel, you feel like there is no recourse. But what I've seen is that the way that we can beat them at this game is by truly practicing a new way. And it's in how we speak to each other, it's in how we approach each other, it's in how we practice business, it's in how we live. It's really by bringing the sacred back and saying, no, we're not the walking dead. We're not your pawns. We're not going to continue in this sick system. We may have to participate because we have no choice. And I'm guilty. I use fossil fuels. I'm a part of the disease. I often say, if you're not a part of the healing, then you're a part of the disease. Because we're living in such a time where waterways are being poisoned, soils are being poisoned, our resources are being raped and ravaged. World hunger, I read a statistic that there's 2,400 billionaires in the world. And if 243 put forward a few million, we would end world hunger. It was just absolutely disturbing to me that a lot of these things that seem so solid in our world right now, that seem so impossible to change, actually are based upon someone's greed. That's it, literally. And so, there's lots of indigenous cultures around the world that have said that a new age is coming. They call it the Aquarian Age in some places. The Hopi Indians, they spoke of the rainbow prophecy. I was just speaking with an Aboriginal man out there that was saying they have their own storytellings of the ages and when they end and when they begin. But in my own way, I've studied the Renaissance, the last Renaissance, and the last Renaissance took 300 years. And at the time, they had suppressed science for 600 years before the so-called Renaissance began. 600 years, they suppressed something. And I think about now, we're like 100 and almost 20 years in to cannabis being prohibited. And we still see the lying. We see the lying, we see the ignorance of science in the name of greed and money-making. And we feel this atrocity. And what I just want to say is that there's a great writer, Arundhati Roy, and she speaks a lot about human rights. She's from India, and she says that on a quiet day, she can hear the Renaissance breathing. And I like to think of that when things get really challenging and I'm attempting to figure out how I can face whatever next situation is coming down the pike. And I think about the fact that, nature works in more subtle ways. Nature works in more beautiful ways, like the dew when it's cast upon a spider web. It's so subtle, it's so elegant. And so I try and think about, in terms of contrasting between their walking dead and our walking healed, every time we make a choice that brings the sacred back, that connects our hearts to another human, that brings and helps somebody rise up from their own depression or sadness, we are a part of the healing. We are a part of the solution. Don't discount yourself. Don't discount how important that is, because they will have you believing that that doesn't mean shit. And the fact of the matter is, it does. It does make all the difference in the world. Guys, just give me a 5-minute, because I have no idea what time it is. So just...
I was going to say, it's not working. Yeah, I reckon you could wind up in about 5 minutes and we'll do some questions.
So the key for me is kind of owning it. You know, I read something about becoming who you've become and being people of a renaissance. I would say, you know, if I do my calculations, we're about 100 years in, and we probably have another 200 years to go. So we'll all be dead before we see kind of what we dream of, a world of biofuel, no more fossil fuels, you know, farm to table, lots of cooperatives and collectives, less waste, no more plastic, no more single-use plastics, right? We all want those things. And so it's, what I would say is just seek evidence for what you are building moment by moment. And as you watch your vision come alive, know, encourage yourself. A lot of times what's sick in the society is that we're seeking evidence for more of the same. And if we're seeking evidence for what's bad, oh my God, every fucking minute you can find evidence for what is still wrong and what is still bad. And it can really drag you down and keep you living like a victim. And what I would say is, I would encourage everyone, myself included, this is my daily practice, and it's not always easy. Some days are uglier than others. But what I encourage myself to do is keep seeking evidence of where the good is happening, where reception is happening, where the Renaissance is happening, where it is working, where we are making progress, who is educating, who is doing it. Go and talk to them, unite with them. And what we'll do all together, because it's every single person that has to participate. You know, I don't care about the magazine in terms of being a vehicle for my ego. This magazine is devoted to the people. This magazine is devoted to a renaissance. This magazine is devoted to what's meaningful and sacred and bringing it more forward, bringing more eyes to see it, bringing more people to the table, not less. It's about inclusion, not exclusion. For me, a lot of the magazines out there, they're really about sensationalism and who's cool and who won the cup. I really don't care. For me, yes, I really enjoy wonderful, beautiful buds, and I think it's great. But I really do believe that the plant, cannabis, is here for all of us to teach us. And if we're just interested in money-making for money-making's sake, then we've missed the point. If we can infuse philanthropy, if we can infuse community, if we can infuse healing into this, and if we can keep banding together and seeking evidence together, I think that we can prove that you can do business, good business, you can make money, you can be successful. And you can also be sharing that wealth and that good energy with everyone around you so that you are part of the healing and not part of the disease.